I had the obvious crisis any civilized person might, for days. I agonized over whether to warn my boss that she was about to be brutally assaulted by my partners in crime. Despite numerous rationalizations, excuses, and mental playbacks of the death of well-dressed prick, some part of me knew something would happen this time, too. Somehow or another, she would end up dead if the attack went through. It was a premonition I couldn't shake. I downed coffee after coffee while debating what to do. At one time, I had liked and respected her. She'd been incredibly convincing. She was a single mom with 5 kids. We'd had a drink after my first office Christmas party. In that late private hour, we'd talked like normal people. She told me about her struggles and stress, and I'd believe her. That conversation remained with me as an internal excuse for her behavior for the next several years. There were constant requests for unpaid overtime, extra work, or favors. I did all of these with a sense of pride, for what man could refuse a woman in such need? It felt like we were a secret team, like I had responsibility greater than those of my coworkers. Of course, I felt a little weird when a new intern quit because of all the extra unpaid work. I hadn't seen any of that, and I wondered, was she asking him for favors too? Had it somehow been kept secret from me? My confusion turned to bitter fury when I decided to leave at 9 at night instead of staying until my extra work was done. I didn't go home. I visited a few bars she had mentioned over the years. At the 5th and final one, I found her. I sat in my car and watched through the windows of the place. It was a high-class establishment. She stood laughing with a few girlfriends, a dainty drink in hand. Her dress was form-fitting and fantastic. This was not at all the tired and stressed single mom I'd been sold. It might have been crossing the line, but I knew her address from mail at work. I drove by her place while she was out. The lights were on and someone was home. I knocked. The door swung open a minute later to reveal a haggard 30-something man and a cluster of screaming and boisterous children. "Can I help you?" "Oh, I'm sorry," I told him. "I was looking for lying bitch. She told me to bring her some documents for tomorrow's presentation." "She's not here," he replied with a sigh. "She's at work until late again." I could have told him then, but I didn't think it was my place at the time. Instead, I made polite small talk until the truth came out. These were his kids. He had been a single father of 5 after their mother had died, and lying bitch was a supposed stable and hard-working new wife that I later noted had come around right after a large life insurance settlement. Once I knew her lies unraveled daily. After every single claim she made, I dug a little deeper and found that she did literally no work in any area of her life. Her dynasty was an invisible pyramid of secret overtime and personal favors. Each man was separated from the others to ensure nobody would ever put 2 and 2 together. Her home life was non-existent. She drank, partied, and went home with strangers under the guise of working late hours to support her new family. And she utterly despised me once I slowly stopped accepting her requests. Rumors began circulating about me at the office. A promotion passed me over, and I kept ending up in the worst projects. She never said a single word to me directly, and the old me with the wool over his eyes would have just chalked it up for being bad luck. But I knew. This woman was a demon of lies that sucked the life out of everyone around her. But did she deserve to die? I sat at my desk drinking coffee and going over her supposed crimes. Nothing she had done was illegal in the strictest sense, and I could certainly destroy her life simply by shedding light on her pyramid of lies, but there were consequences to consider. First, that she had no real skills other than manipulation. If her life was torn to shreds, how would she support herself? Would she go through the long and arduous process of self-discovery and learning to stand on her own 2 feet? Or would she just spin a new web? Second, she could likely take me down with her. There would be no hiding my identity if I approached multiple people and clued them in. I might even come off as a strange stalker. As the days wore on and Tom and Jake observed her and began putting together a plan, I felt the decision slowly being made for me. If I was to spare her this fate, I needed to choose. The day of the planned assault, a direct conversation felt in order. I entered her office with a binder casually in hand. "Hey, lying bitch, mind if we talk?" "Sure," she said with a smile that I knew to be fake, but which was otherwise perfect. "Sit." I sat. She leaned slightly forward. "What's up?" Approaching was what was really on my mind. In a roundabout way, I said, "I notice I've been sort of stagnant where I'm at. My performance reviews have been very good, so I've been wondering if there's anything else I can do to get back on top." Sighing, she leaned back against her chair. "I didn't want to say anything, but you haven't exactly been a team player lately. People are starting to talk about it." Suppressing an inner rush of anger, I put on a politely confused face. "Really? What's the problem? I've done everything officially asked of me." A real workplace is a bit more than official," she explained. "Official projects are just the minimum to get by. To really be part of the team, you need to take on more than just the minimum." I faked my best understanding nod. "I was doing that my first few years here." "You were," she responded, leaning forward again. "And what changed?" I couldn't help it. "When I was working unpaid overtime one night, I went home to get something, and I saw your car at a bar. You were in there drinking." To her credit, her face didn't twitch a bit. "What I do in my personal time is none of your business. I hope that's all you did, or I'll have to, inform HR that you're harassing me." "Harassing you?" My anger mixed with amusement. She was an expert predator in the ecosystem in which she had evolved, but I had a secret advantage. Real violence, cut through bullshit, red tape, pathetic reputation games. "Not at all, lying bitch. I just happen to know what really goes on here. I've run into other guys doing unpaid overtime, which is against company policy, by the way. And I even ran into your husband at the grocery store. Many things you say don't add up." Her mask finally fell away, and I saw pure evil there. She came around her desk, stood above me with flared eyes. "Fine, dispense with the games. What do you want for your silence? Money? A promotion? Sex?" I stared up in disgust. "Seriously?" I stood very slowly and moved toward her door. Through my instincts told me leaving without making a deal was an extremely dangerous idea. The kind of person lying bitch truly was seemed to run on amoral manipulation and exchanges. She was rather attractive, but something about that option felt objectively wrong. A promotion would have been nice, but that would just put me deeper under her thumb. Money. She lifted slightly, relieved in her own special way that I was playing ball. "How much?" What number seemed reasonable? $10,000. She didn't flinch. Had my number been perfect, or should I have asked for more? Reaching down, she picked up the phone, and I watched as she faked in perfect distress for her husband about a sudden financial need. I could hear his confused hurt and despair on the other side of the phone, but he agreed, and she hung up with a smile. "You'll have your money tomorrow. I expect you'll keep your mouth shut." "I will," I said quietly, my decision made. It was my turn to go to the bar. Inviting a few colleagues from work, we sat, drank, and conversated over the endless hours working with little reward underlying bitch. None outright revealed what she was doing to each of them. I marveled at how well our culture had trained us to be polite and loyal to the point of self-enslavement. These were decent men, good men. They deserved to be free and treated with respect. Fancying myself their secret liberator, for in many ways I was. I soared high on the power of life and death. I was hilarious, compassionate, and the center of attention. I was no longer beat down, frustrated, and stressed. and they could sense it. Determined to make my positivity infectious, I grew even more boisterous and over the top, and we ended the night by invading a karaoke bar and having the best office outing of all time. We slunk back into work the next morning, exhausted and haggard, for not one of us had gone home. We'd greeted the sunrise at a diner, ate waffles and pancakes, and headed into the office as a caravan of still drunk fools, intent on facing the music together. But the music never came, and neither did Lying Bitch. Around noon, after we'd have ample time to coffee up and down painkillers, the regional VP arrived with a grief counselor in tow. It seemed that Lying Bitch had accidentally driven herself over the corner of a nearby bridge on the way home. The VP did not mention that she had been drinking at a bar. It was a tragic accident. The company would make sure to take care of her family, and most importantly, we all had the day off. I drifted home and lay on the couch as the hours blurred together. Part of me was triumphant and grinning inside, but part of me was horrified that I'd been right. The planned beating had instead ended in death a second time. I wasn't going to meet with Tom and Jake for another 3 weeks, but I knew I would be demanding the full story of what happened from them. How did roughing someone up turn into driving them off a bridge? At the time, I still felt guilt. That gnawing chill compelled me to return to her husband's house, and I stood at the door and offered my condolences. He gravely accepted them, but he also seemed relieved and rested. Behind him, I saw a nanny taking care of the kids, and I understood. Either the company benefits or a second life insurance payout had rescued his family from this hole their embezzling new mother figure had dug underneath them. Free of guilt, I took my leave. Death had not been a tragedy for anyone in this woman's life. Violence had spiked out of the wilds of human experience with surgical aim and removed the tumor that had grown on the suffocating structure of rules and customs we'd collectively built, in a vain attempt to keep out the danger of nature. Rather than protection, we had built only a framework for imprisonment and parasites. There was something bigger in what Tom, Jake, and I were doing. I had to think on it. The weeks rolled by as I dealt with the intense stress and let it flow out of me. I was given her old job. After that grand night out, the guys universally threw their support behind me to replace her, and the regional VP couldn't give a shit either way. I was in, and I found it strange that twice Death had been rewarded with immediately increased status. This structure we lived in was cold and impersonal to the extreme. Without the need for the staff to secretly and constantly overwork, our office productivity and morale rose significantly. Actually doing my job made it easier for my men to do theirs? What a concept! By the time my meeting with Tom and Jake approached, I had nothing but contempt for the memory of Lying Bitch.